Well, good morning, folks. Welcome to the Rangers Reviews morning briefing on this Thursday ahead of another huge Europa League game at Ibrox. I'm Joshua Barry, standing in for the dulcet tones of Derek Clark, who I believe, Johnny, is off to Prague this weekend, so having a far more adventurous time than both of us. But I am
You'll still be watching the game, I'm sure, but from Eastern Europe.
Yeah, indeed. But joined by Johnny McFarlane to look ahead to, well, a really big opportunity, Johnny, to get into the last eight of Europe. I know it's two ties, but this is obviously the one in which Rangers have the home advantage. And I feel because of the Dortmund game and Red Star aren't as big a name, although historically they're a huge name. The Dortmund tie in a way felt bigger, but this is an absolutely huge game at Ibrox tonight, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the massive thing here, Josh, I think on the larger macro scale is that Rangers have the opportunity to continue their improvement as a club that we've seen over the last 10 years by moving to a stage of Europe that they haven't been at. And that would be a real marker because it shows that the club is moving into a position of really getting back to being that huge European force that it can be once again. And no one could doubt the impressive nature of a last eight Europa League berth. The Europa League is much stronger now than it has been in previous years because of the changes in the tournament, the changes in the Champions League, and it's only going to get more prestigious. And I think you see the excitement levels around the Europa League. I don't feel like it's all that different to the Champions League. And given that the Champions League is so full of elite talent, ultimately a club with the Rangers budget will find it difficult to even compete. So there's that added element in the Europa League of you're having an opportunity to actually do something, to actually perform. Whereas if you're at the Champions League level, it really is the cutting edge, the cut and thrust. And listen, obviously, I'm saying all this, you'd still rather be in the Champions League. It's still the most prestigious. It's still the most exciting. But we saw how good Malmo were. I thought Rangers should have gone through in that tie. I thought Rangers were a better side and a better players than Malmo. But still, there wasn't much in it, Josh. I think we'd all agree that. You know, it was a close tie. Malmo got 1 point in the Champions League. They got pretty much battered in a good few of their games. So that's maybe an acid test of where Rangers would be at a Champions League level. Whereas in Europa League, you really feel like on almost every game, you have a sneaky, no matter what. I mean, even against Dortmund, I thought Dortmund would go through, but I thought Rangers had a sneaky. You know, and that makes it exciting, and that makes the possibilities intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to the last eight, anything can happen. Anything. We saw that in 2008. So, you know, I think this would be a really, really good further step for Rangers to take as a last eight Europa League club and really put their name out there.
Yeah, and a long way to go, obviously, before that, which we'll get into. And on the Champions League, I don't know if anyone else watched the Real Madrid's game last night, but what an incredible second half that was from Benzema. That is the level, Johnny, isn't it? Which the Rangers hope to be at next season.
Yeah.
But as you say, it would be a real, I guess, natural progression to move to the last eight this time rounds after it's last 16 exits. But as you say, it's really difficult to get there because Red Star Belgrade will be having the exact same conversation. They will think, do you know what, we've avoided such and such. We've got a team that are probably at a similar level than us, so let's go and win. It's a different tie compared to the Dortmund tie because Rangers aren't, to their own support, I think, are the favourites. To the neutral, maybe they just edge it, certainly very close. There's a lot of parallels between the side. They were Serbian champions last season. They were unbeaten. In the coefficient, they're pretty close. In the UEFA club rankings, they're pretty close. And that's a different type of game, Johnny, to what we've seen against Dortmund 2 weeks ago. From what you've read, and obviously we've got a lot on the website about Red Star Belgrade, what do you make of them as an opposition ahead of tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that there's again, it's going to be a tight match. If anyone who's thinking, well, we beat Dortmund, so we'll smash Red Star, is really off the pace. I think when you do your reading, when you look at the quality they have, when you look at the work Dejan Stankovic has done at the club, you can tell that they are a serious outfit. They remind me a little bit of Slavia Prague, just in terms of that's the kind of level of quality that I think we're talking about. Maybe not quite as good, Joshua. I noticed you've got an excellent piece on the website about their propensity to shoot. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
I sent it to you with a shocked face yesterday, because often, what as the viewers will know, we like our shot maps on the Rangers Review. They give a good kind of overview of the type of areas that teams are attacking from, and often, increasingly, I'd say teams aren't shooting from range because the likelihood of scoring is so low. But also, if you're trying to break a team down and you shoot, you relieve the pressure, you allow them to reset, all these things. And the example I use is Pep Guardiola after, I think it was Vincent Kompany, you'll remember, in 2019, scored that ridiculous goal against Leicester when City just couldn't break them down. And it was a real nice reminder of just hitting it. But what I would say is, go and look at that shot map in the Rangers Review, because it will just take you by surprise. The shots they take are crazy. And for me, that's two-sided. One side is I always think when I see a shot map like that you have a side that probably have freedom in the attacking third, for better or for worse. So maybe they don't have the the same tools to open up Rangers as a Dortmund would, in terms of if Rangers choose to sit back for periods of the game. And I think that's reflected in the lack of kind of high quality shots they have in the penalty area. A couple of their goals were penalties in the group stage as well. But then also you have the reality that Alan McGregor hasn't been great from long shots. A couple of the shots they've taken, although it is out of a real high volume, a couple of them have went in. So just an interesting angle. We've also got some detailed look at the group stage, and you can go and read all of that just now if you subscribe over on the website. So yeah, expect, if you're sitting behind either of the goals, I would be on guard to leap up and make sure that you don't get hit by a ball, because I'm sure that they'll have unleash a few shots. In terms of what else they do, I'd expect them to attack a lot down the left. Rodic is their left wing back, and Ivanic, that seems to be where they channel a lot of their attacks. You can see that in the shot map as well. I think they'll be quite compact with the ball. They've got three centre backs. I don't think it'll be too dissimilar to the way that Gerrard's Rangers always try to show play outside, comfortable defending crosses, because they've got those three big centre backs. So how Rangers approach that's going to be really interesting, because, without the away goal, will they come and play it like an away tie? I don't know. I think going away to their stadium might well be a slight disadvantage because of the I guess the factors that surround it. But I guess, Ibrox is a really difficult venue to play in for away teams as well. So I think it's going to be a pretty evenly matched tie. I don't think they look as well coached as Slavia Prague. I think Slavia Prague looked just quite physically dominant compared to Rangers at the time, Johnny. And obviously we've discussed that in detail in relation to the signings that reflected that nature in this summer window. But we shall see. It leads us nicely on to talk about teams. We'll get into that, and then we'll get into some questions.
Well, I want to throw something at you first, because there's a couple of comments here, Joshua. Sorry, I know I'm taking over the hosting duties. I'm taking over. That's it.
Go for it. That's fine. It. Makes my life easier.
No, I thought there was a couple of good points here, and rather than you ask me, I wanted to pick your brains, because you know about this stuff more than I do. So John Turner's saying 3-5-2 tonight. I noticed there's someone else saying perhaps 3 at the back. Now, Josh, yeah, here it is. Here it's Ali Quinn saying Rangers need 2 to go back, and a back 5. Goldson and Co are a bit shaky. Now, here's why I'm interested in this idea of 3 at the back. I'm convinced that in Scottish football, that if you change up your formation, if you change up your style, if you're capable of doing that, you can do really well to disrupt how teams prepare against you and win games that you wouldn't have otherwise won, because managers don't really know how to prepare. Now, I'll use an example. I've used it before. Right. Celtic in the season that was curtailed. Let's not get into the whole curtailment thing.
Yeah.
But Rangers went to Parkhead and won 2-1. At that point in the season, Rangers were far better. I think Rangers had a better 11. Neil Lennon went away having been pretty much battered on his own ground and changed Celtic into a 3-5-2. Now, it might have been for a last throw of the dice, whatever. But when he came back, Celtic went on a massive winning run because the teams didn't know how, they knew how to deal with Celtic in a 4-3-3, but all of a sudden, 3-5-2 was completely throwing them off. And it took them 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 games of watching Celtic in that system to start to realise how to stop it. And of course, we all know what happened the following season. When he continued with that, everybody had worked it out and Celtic were a basket case. So there is context. But my point remains, those 11 games were enough to get them enough points that when the league was curtailed, they were awarded it. I just think sometimes if you stick with the same thing over and over again, the one thing that Scottish coaches are really, really good at is defending their patch, is setting up to stop things. You know, it's I suppose it's intrinsic in Scottish culture as being a clan race going back thousands of years that will defend things well, an island race to boot. Maybe that's a little bit overthinking it, perhaps.
I like it. Football feeds into everything, so we'll stick with it.
My point is, number one, you're kind of flipping the script, you're ripping things up and starting again a little bit. Number two, it would give us a really, really strong, a much stronger foundation to look at for this game against Red Star at the back. But number three, and this is, I think, crucial, I think all the teams that have caused Celtic problems this season play three at the back because it stops Celtic having these wide overloads. So I think it's a serious proposition that the Rangers need to consider against Celtic is to play three at the back. But there's a lot of other positives to going to three at the back. Yeah.
Well, I think William says it here, Gio is more open to changes of systems than we've been used to, and he's spot on. I think if you look back at that Slavia game and the Malmo game, what for me the key theme was the way that they exploited Rangers' system. So if you go back and watch the highlights of that Malmo game, watch their first goal and watch where their central midfielder is. He's out playing on the right wing to create a wide overload, as you say, because they knew that Rangers, for all their benefits of the 4-3-3 that allowed them to go away to Porto and get these results and go to the last 16 as we've just discussed, for all those benefits, they were dogmatic and we're not going to really change away from it. And as we discussed, if Gerrard had been in that situation at halftime against Dortmund, I don't think he'd have changed to that three at the back.
I agree.
Now, some managers will maybe, like Gerrard, they'll view everything really as all the variation within one system. That's what Michael Wheel spoke about a lot. You know, a Fashion Sakala playing on the right wing is different to a Scott Arfield, and therefore that's the same as switching from a 4-3-3 to a 4-2-3-1, that kind of thing. But also there is fundamental changes, you're right, whereby a shape change, an extra central defender, which was so helpful in the second half against Dortmund, then allows the fullbacks to go higher, which was really important, but also allowed the fullbacks to defend aggressively. So what you had, the issue in the first half, and you have this issue when Rangers, I think, when the wingers don't track the fullbacks, which was perfectly shown at Parkhead, is the left back or the right back is left with two players to track and big space to do so, and you can open up a big space in the defence. I think in a more possession-dominant game, if you've got your Jack and your Lundstrom, then you can kind of counteract that quite neatly because one of them can go out, one of them can stay in the middle, and you also have the kind of, I guess, defensive reliability of Scott Arfield. But I do completely agree with you that having that 3-5-2, having that option to switch is something different. And I think so often under Gerrard, the thing that, for me, watching and covering and looking at it, it was almost a frustration, Johnny, that if they just did something different one time out of 10, it protects their best assets better. And I remember one of the final press conferences Gerrard did, I asked him about that. I said, look, in the summer you said teams are going to figure us out and you've not really done anything different. Although I didn't say it so much, those words, I said it a bit more polite. And he kind of said, yeah, and we're trying to add that. And again, individuals add that variation. But as I say, I think one of the reasons that Rangers probably didn't get by Malmo was that they were too predictable to attack. And you've seen that culminated in the game before Van Bronckhorst came in, which was the Hibs semi-final, which was, it was just terrible. But Hibs were able to almost script their attacks. They knew how to hurt Rangers. It had been done time and time again. And crucially, they knew Rangers are going to play this way. And that was all the noise Rangers made in the week leading up to it. We've got this one club philosophy. We're going to train in the same way. Tavernier spoke about having this really good style of play at the football club. But sometimes I think clubs, as you say, can go to the extreme. So I think the 3-5-2 could work. I think that Van Bronckhorst's ability to rotate and do things differently, which we've seen throughout the league campaign, is a net positive as long as he can kind of keep a base Blair principle or philosophy. And maybe, Johnny, that is the thing that will, allow Rangers to go to the next stage in Europe. Because if Red Star were coming to play Rangers last season, they'd have known exactly how Rangers are going to play. On the flip side, that Rangers would have known exactly how they're going to play, and it might have allowed them to play better. But then, we can always deal in hypotheticals, can't we? So, yeah, I think that's a good addition tonight for Rangers, and it'll be interesting to see how they go from the start. Maybe they do match up. Maybe tonight they try to play their own game and match up away from home.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how he approaches it, Josh. That's for sure. In terms of, I think you were going to go on and ask me about my team, so I'm going to tell you my team. Okay,
go for it.
Now, I've thought about this deeply, and I've actually changed my mind overnight. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling last night, thinking, I'm glad I didn't put in my teams yesterday because I was a day off, and because I've changed my mind. Right, so here's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to stick. I'm not going to go to 3-5-2.
Okay.
So I'm obviously McGregor in goals, Bassey at left back, Balogun, Goldson, Tavernier, midfield, base of midfield, Kamara, Jack, Lundstrom.
Okay.
Further forwards, Kent, Morelos, Aribo, and I'm going to ask them to play a sort of 4-3-1-2.
I thought you were going to add in another player up top, and I was going to say you can't have 12 players. That's against tournament rules. But I like that.
I'm dropping Arfield to bring in Aribo ostensibly on the right, but he's not really playing on the right. And what I'm asking them to do is I'm asking them to play the same midfield that kind of played under Gerrard, give a lot of defensive help, allow the fullbacks to bomb on, but you also got that number 10 there behind Kent and Morelos, with Kent giving a kind of free roll, go and cause havoc.
Yeah. I know it's interesting because we were having this discussion. I was having this discussion with a friend of the show and contributor to the website, Adam Thornton, on the tactics talk this week, and we were speaking about should Kent play out wider in the centre, and I'm very much of the opinion really that you play Kent where the space is. If a team are going to flood the middle and they're going to leave a fullback out wide, put Kent on him and allow him to run at him. If a team are going to leave space in the middle, allow Kent to run in the middle. And I guess we don't really know how Red Star will set up tonight. The only change I would make probably is I don't know if I'd be tempted to go slightly more offensive and include Arfield, I guess, leg dependent over Kamara. The reason being, I think that Jack Lundstrom midfield base gives you a really nice base. I think against Dortmund it worked really well. And I think you've seen in the away tie against Dortmund, it did give kind of sufficient defensive cover. And in the home tie until the tide kind of changed, as we've just discussed. I think that is probably in Europe is the most solid foundation that Rangers have. In saying that, Arfield has looked tired to me. I asked him about that recently. I think it was after the Aberdeen game, and he seemed to say, "Look, I feel sharp. When you've been playing lots of games, you feel sharp, etc., etc." But I don't know if really that's reflected in recent performances. I also part of me would be tempted to try and include Kemar Roof in that starting 11, but maybe that's more one for the weekend. But I still think Rangers need more of a goal threat. In saying that, that's not really been an issue in Europe. So that would be the only change that I'd go for there, Johnny. But I think Balogun coming back into the centre is important. And Bassey, who's up doing the media duties yesterday, if Rangers do play a 4 at the back, what Bassey allows you to do is be really aggressive and tight to the opposing wing back. I don't think Barisic gives you that same protection. I think he stands off too much, allows them the momentum, and you can't really have that, I don't think, in my opinion. So that would be the only change that I'd make from your starting 11.
And we see here a question from the Crypto Knight. Do you guys think Davis's lack of game time means it's over? One thing I think is a bit curious about GVB in the pressers, and Joshua, you're there. I'm not there. You're there talking to him, so perhaps you're better to give your opinion than me on this, right? I get the impression he's a bit reluctant to give too much detail over injuries. You know, you ask him a question about injuries, and he'll say, "Yeah, he's injured," and and maybe he'll be out in a week. You know, it's not, Davis is out with a hamstring injury. We're looking at probably 2 weeks. He seems quite reluctant to give that kind of level of detail. And because, listen, it's just factual. Often we have 2 questions in a presser, but yesterday we only had 1. So you ask about team news, he gives you an answer that's a bit vague, and then you can't kind of follow it up, and you're relying on someone else saying, "Excuse me, Gio, what exactly is the problem with Davis?" And you know, I think sometimes he's even reluctant when he's asked directly to go into the detail. What do you make of that?
I think that I think it comes back to the type of injuries that he's speaking about. So the quartet probably of Jack, who's now returned, Hollander, Davies, and who's the last one? I forgot, Johnny, who's been out a lot. Jack Ramsey, and all those players have had injury issues, and I imagine it's probably, you know, a directive to protect them from the pressure of coming back. I think that's probably what surrounds it, because, you know, you look at Hollander recently and had Van Bronckhorst said in January he's picked up a setback and he'll be back in 2 weeks, but then it's still March and we've still not seen him regularly. I think that puts unnecessary pressure from the club's point of view. Obviously, supporters, journalists want to know as much as possible. That's just how it works. But I think it probably is just a bit of a protection thing. And unique to the situation of those 4 injuries, whereby you've got Davies, who seems to have recurring injuries at this age. Hollander seems to have a setback. Ramsey's a confusing one, because I asked about a setback a few weeks ago and I was told there had been no setback. But if there's been no setback, why is the game time had to be kind of ramped up again from the start? So that's where I guess it's a little bit frustrating in terms of not knowing the detail, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. In terms of Davis, I mean, Derek had a piece on the website yesterday where I think he was capturing what many of us have been sort of slowly coming to the realization of, which is Rangers could do with a kind of creative, deep-lying midfield player who's got a pass and is capable of starting moves and pops up with a very, very occasional goal, but kind of
very occasional, and pops up with a very regular, let's see, last season, off-target shot from the edge of the box, which he seemed to do every second game.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about overhead kicks against Celtic. You know, that obviously balances all these things out. So, I mean, there's no doubt his metronomic presence in starting moves from the base of midfield. I mean, there's all these detailed stats about this, you know, third assists and all this sort of stuff, Joshua, packing, which is the number of players you take out with a forward pass. I mean, this is the kind of area that Davis really excels in, isn't it?
Well, I think what the predominant one is, I think off the top of my head, is deep progressions. So how he's basically moving the ball through the pitch. So if you get it's the difference between if you get a central midfielder who firstly needs to get on the ball, which has been one of the main issues under Van Bronckhorst, which is why he kind of settled on 2. Are they going to move the ball sideways, or are they going to move the ball forwards? And sometimes I guess that's down to instruction. Maybe Rangers want to progress the ball down the right side of the pitch. But sometimes you just want a midfielder who's going to get the ball and be able to cut through the opposition. And that's what Davies is really, really good at. Last season was just an unbelievable level for a 36-year-old. Again, to use last night as a template, you've seen that with Luka Modric, who, you know, 36, 30, going on 37, and is just a fantastic football player. And I think Rangers undoubtedly have missed Davies, because what he also gives you, and I think Jack gives this, he gives you tempo. I don't think Kamara always gives you tempo. I think he needs almost a tempo setter next to him.
Yeah.
And you see that at times when he slows play down a little bit too much for me. So have Rangers missed Stephen Davies? I think absolutely. They probably thought he had another season in him if he played 30 games. I don't know. I think he's played about 10, 90 minutes in the league this season, and maybe slightly less. And the Jack Lundstrom, I think the Jack Lundstrom base has started to lessen the load on the midfield. Also, Arfield's playing with near Morelos means that Rangers can get the ball through the pitch. I think that's why it looked better against Hibs, Hearts, Dundee United away, Motherwell at home, even though points were dropped in 2 of those games. But coming on to next season, Johnny, if Van Bronckhorst, I think all this talk of tactical variation, what does Van Bronckhorst want? I think he wants a traditional wide 4-3-3.
Yeah.
And to do that, I think you need a really good ball-playing number 6 who can do a lot on his own. And I don't think Rangers really have that at the club. I don't think Kamara is probably the answer in there. I don't think Lundstrom is the answer on his own in there.
Yeah.
I think Jack and Lundstrom work well together. So that'll be interesting to see what he does moving forward, because certainly when Rangers have played with one number 6, I'm thinking the 1-0 win over Dundee United at home, the 1-0 win over Livingston, it is so evident to see that Rangers struggle to get the ball into that player.
Okay, guys, we're going to have to call it a day there. Thanks for watching. Once again, you can subscribe to the website. It's $2.99 a month. That's a huge level of support to keep us doing these kind of discussions every single day. Monday to Friday, we'll talk Rangers, the big issues. We'll obviously interact with the guys who are watching as we are live. And even when it's game day, we will have someone in the stands giving their reaction after the game from the Ibrox press box or elsewhere around Scotland. Thanks for watching. It's been terrific having this discussion once again, and we will get back to you once again later on tonight. Let's hope that we have a very positive display and result to discuss. Cheers.